Something that I really wanted to talk about here is usually when we dive into darkness and light, shadow and sun, we're conditioned to believe that darkness is bad and light and sunshine is good. But because we've followed Serapio, who's supposed to be the crow god, who can disperse himself into a flurry of crows, who can summon shadow, who has massacred the entire tower of people except a couple of greybeards and the children, so he's not gone fully Anakin over to Darth Vader because he left the kids alone, thank God. That was a hard one to swallow. In this case though, I don't think that we are conditioned to see crows, shadow, darkness and murdering as bad. And we don't know enough about the sun, but we know sort of about Narampa. She had a really tough upbringing. She doesn't really know her powers and she hasn't been nurtured. So the two questions that I want to talk about with this theme is, do you think we are looking at good or evil here, good and evil? And are we going to be completely kind of like torn about our feelings for Serapio because he has goodness in him? He's trying to find love for the first time. He's, he never signed up for this fate. But now that it's coming down to shadow versus light, like, are we all going to be like, no, Serapio, why are you so inherently bad? Because it has to be bad versus good. Would anyone like to weigh in on that one?
I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Let's go.
We need both light and shadow. It's really difficult to live in a world that's all sunlight or that's all darkness. And I think Serapio was honed as a weapon. He was raised basically by cultists. So he is geared only to that particular mission. But I think underneath it all, he's something of an idealist. And so I really think that if he and Narampa, because they're both concerned about corruption in the tower, they're both concerned about making it more relevant. And I think if the two of them could ever get into a place where they could see the other side, where they could communicate, I think they'd find that they have some goals that are much more aligned than anyone would think.
Except you have to be willing to have that conversation, and Serapio, feeling the presence of Narampa, has gone into kill mode instantly. I must destroy this. This is my goal. So when your overriding sort of goal, which you live and breathe, is to destroy the thing, do you think that there is room for a conversation? Because they are on the same page.
What I think the big problem here is his programming. He has been programmed for that. So he can't see past that. I don't know if he'll ever get to a point where he might be able to. Maybe Shiala at some point can be the key to that. It's his upbringing, it's his cultist background that's preventing him from being able to do anything except go into kill mode.
I love that. Ivory, you've got some thoughts. I would love to chat with this about you. No, I would love to chat with you about this.
Yeah. Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what Colleen said. I don't think it's a clear-cut good versus evil at all, which is part of what I love so much about this series, is that it's not like that. Like, everybody has both good and bad. Like, we know that the tower has done a lot of bad things, and that's part of why they wanted to bring back the Crow God in the first place.
Dude, when we found out about Ava and what she did when she was 12, like, Iktan just like dropping the juice, where this girl's like, oh, and Ava, we loved her, my sweet cousin. And he was like, no, I'm going to bring out the tea on your cousin. She was not nice. She bit off a boy's tongue just to know what his blood would taste like. This chick is unhinged. And even though she's dead, I'm not going to speak nicely of her because she never deserved that. And I was like, oh, Ikhtan with the tea. So yes, there were bad things that happened in this tower, which is supposed to be very ethereal, which is supposed to be bringing of the light and keeping order. And yeah, they were not good people. They had an Assassin's League. How's that good? Yeah.
And we know like about the Night of Knives, how they sent out a bunch of people to just completely destroy Carrion Crow because they weren't worshiping the same gods and all that. So like we know that they have a bad history. And then obviously like the Odosido was resurrected for the sole purpose of destroying. It was to destroy a group that had caused lots of pain to people. So the people who, at least the Carrion Crow members who were part of it, genuinely thought that this would help them. They weren't thinking of it from a destruction. They were thinking of it as like,
we're getting the greater good here. We are getting major greater good vibes. The greater good.
And then with Serapio, like his main mode is kill mode, but how much of that is him and how much of it is the Odosido?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I love that. Like the Odosido is the prophecy, is the weapon, and he's lived through that, and now he wants to be a person. And I think his draw to Shiala was that it keeps him human. She's the vessel that will humanize him and keep him sort of grounded and back to earth. And there was a beautiful moment in how Shiala described him and what she was able to get from that relationship too. And that was that he never asked more from her than she was able to give. Like here is a semi-god in a way, and he was just treating her so different to everything that she'd experienced before in a really beautiful way. I think that they are very necessary, and going back to Colleen's sort of prediction, where if they could just talk, we don't need war. We don't need a war if we can just talk it out. And I think Shiala will help the Odosido become more Serapio. And I mean, I think it's quite obvious. We all are big fans of Serapio, yeah? Like, the Serapio and the Shiala chapters are my favorite. The Okoa and the Narampa chapters are very slow for me. I just don't care as much because in my head, all I'm doing is Serapio and Shiala, kiss. That's it. Am I alone? Is anyone else getting that? Darren, we haven't heard from you in a moment. Which chapters are your favorite?
Let them smooch.
Let them smooch. Exactly, Lisa.